This might not show, but I like to occasionally play shoot-em-ups. I consider myself a casual fan who can appreciate the simple gameplay loop mixed with complex systems. And of course, moments that make me shout, Jesus f***ing Christ! Most of my experience fall under the Toho series and a game called Blue Revolver. So imagine my surprise when one of the most infamous PS1 games turned out to be good for casuals like myself. This game is Harmful Park, a horizontal scrolling shooter released on the PS1 in 1997 as a Japan-only title. As the last and only PS1 game of its developer, Skything Systems, this game serves as an example of a shoot-em-up, a subgenre of shmups known for their wacky and light-hearted nature. But like its contemporaries, Harmful Park employs jokes that are adult in nature. Immediately, we are presented with the vibrant and colorful design of the game. This presentation style is one of the things that help the game stand out. Definitely helps in upholding the shoot-em-up moniker. I know that by today's internet standards, this game may not be able to compete in cuteness, but there is definitely a charm to it. The assets are great, employing some subtle and not so subtle detail. I'm happy that that can be said for both the in-game sprites and the cutscenes. This leads me to the plot, told mainly through the intro. The game is about the evil scientist, Dr. Tequila, who has taken over the theme park Heartful Park, transforming it into the armed fortress Harmful Park. An old colleague of Dr. Tequila arms her daughters with flying bikes and sends them to stop him. A simple yet outlandish story, but it fits the game's theme. I'd even say it makes the game feel complete. I understand that most don't play shmups for the story, but I appreciate the game for having one that fits. There's also cutscenes in between stages. There are more of extra scenes that add to the player's journey than progressing the story. While there's a language barrier, it's not hard to understand as they're usually lighthearted and comedic. Let's talk gameplay starting with the controls. They're straightforward. D-pad to move, square to shoot, and triangle to use your specials or bombs. The rest are used to switch your weapons. X and circle lets you cycle through your weapons while the shoulder buttons let you directly switch to a specific one. I'll be talking about the weapons later. For now, I want to commend the weapon switching controls as it works great with the weapon system. I was really surprised and find it clever. May not look like it, but weapon cycling can be inconvenient due to how some of the weapons work. To have something that lets the player have immediate control over what weapon to use is a good thing. Not to mention, it also helps the player take advantage of the game's systems. More on that later. The game has a total of 6 stages. They function similarly, but the same can't be said for their designs. Each stage has something that sets it apart, like the theme, palette, and set pieces. The game isn't long, but the stages can feel like it. Not all stages are made equal, as some can have too many things in it. This results in a lack of pacing and difficulty to be all over the place. Makes me wonder if certain stages had to be that long. There's also terrain. Thankfully, touching terrain won't cost the player a life, but they don't have an impact in the long term. Yeah, stages are not corridors anymore, but that's about it. The best thing terrain can do is be a nuisance, not an additional challenge. They blend too well with the stages at times. Luckily, we can tell if something is terrain if a bullet collides with it instead of just passing through. Bosses are found at the end of a stage and they're just as wacky, sporting various designs and behaviors. They can be very random, but that's par for the course. There's also mid-bosses at certain points of a stage, and I'd argue they're more interesting than the actual bosses. The mid-bosses are usually part of a set piece which makes them stand out, and they work well with each other. While the bosses aren't that bad, they aren't great either. Good at best and average at worst. Let's move on to the weapons. As I've hinted at earlier, you have immediate access to all of the weapons. This is surprising. For context, I'll quickly mention how shmups usually do this. Commonly, shmups handle weapons as either character-specific, meaning a single weapon for the entire run, or as item pickups. Harmful Park makes all 4 available at the start, giving the player options and utility. Each weapon also has its own special or bomb which provide a short period of invulnerability and are limited in use. However, additional bombs can be picked up in certain parts of stages. Here are the weapons. The potato is the basic Vulcan gun. Its special is a giant sweet potato that damages enemies it touches and acts as a screen nuke when it explodes. The ice is a laser that penetrates enemies. Its special is a giant laser that comes out of a sundae bowl. The pie is an exploding grenade thrown in an arc. The explosion stays for a few seconds, damaging enemies it touches. Its special is a barrage of cakes that rotate around your character. Last is the jelly. excuse me, Jerry, which are homing bullets. Its special is a big jello that acts as a damage absorbing shield. Regardless of the weapon you use, they follow the same rules. Weapons start at level 1 but can be powered up to level 4. If the player dies, the currently equipped weapon will revert to level 1. Therefore, it's advised to change weapons before dying to preserve the power of your weapon of choice. Or, use a special. Despite the variety, I find the potato or ice to be the well-rounded weapons, with the rest being eh. With how weapons behave and how power-ups work, the concept of immediate weapon availability takes the backseat. Non-powered up weapons become inadequate for the later stages, so in a sense, it's like the mechanics are countering its own design. I also feel like the original intention was to let the player decide which weapons to use at certain parts of stages to make it easier for them. Sadly, that's not the case. Lives and credits work peculiarly. 1 credit equals 2 lives and 1 life equals 3 specials. Lose a life and the specials count reset to 3. You also gain a 1-up every 500,000 points. This is an interesting dynamic as lives are essentially free bombs. And emphasis on free because the game has unlimited credits. You heard me right, for a game that has arcade game design, this is very forward thinking. You'll only game over if you choose to end the run. But you still have to try your best as retries work differently per stage. For stages 1 to 3, you continue from where you died, but for stages 4 to 6, you restart the level. This makes sense as they didn't want retries to be insignificant. And if this isn't enough, credits are recorded as part of the high score, incentivizing players to still work towards a 1 credit clear run. This leads on to scoring. Scoring in Harmful Park is deceptively simple. On the surface, you get points by killing enemies and getting green gems, but both have their own rules. I won't go into full detail like strategizing, so I still suggest doing your own research. Enemy kills have a multiplier system. This serves as the main source of points. Each enemy killed with the same projectile increments the multiplier up to 16. This is then applied to an enemy's base value. So an enemy worth 500 points killed with a times 16 is worth 8,000 points. The gems are dropped by the enemies. Each collected gem has an incremental value of 500. Miss a single gem and the value resets to 500. There are also hidden items throughout the stages that give a total of 50,000 points. And there's an end of stage bonus which involves the amount of specials in stock, gems collected, and destroy percent in the stage. As I said, simple on the surface but really intricate. Good use of these systems will lead you to a higher score. I personally love the depth to them while still maintaining accessibility. Harmful Park has 2 other game modes. Score Attack is a single stage where you try your best to get a high score. This one demands your best as it is a challenge and you only have 1 credit. You'll need to apply all the stuff you'll learn about the game. While I get the idea behind this, I still think this is redundant considering the nature of the game. This could have been another stage in the story instead. Then there's the minigames. Punch Ball, which is Pong, Sky Circuit, which is a time trial race, and Tank Battle, which is combat from the Atari 2600. These minigames are multiplayer focused except for Tank Battle. While not really revolutionary, they are executed rather well. But I see them as a break from the main game at best, and I don't see the game performing differently if the minigames weren't present at all. What about the music? It's good. That's about it. It fits the themes of its stages and even the boss fights. Like the presentation, the sounds are whimsical and a part of the charm. They also sound a bit twangy, but maybe that's just me. I don't think they'll be living rent-free in my head anytime soon. The sound effects is where it's at as it adds personality to the bizarre enemies you encounter. Outside of that, things could be better. The last thing to mention is the hidden test mode. It's accessed through a series of button inputs while highlighting exit in the options menu. It allows access to any stage, cutscene, and the bonus illustrations. My question though is this not supposed to be here? I assume it's a debug menu. I'm not going to say it shouldn't be here, instead I wish they made this more easily accessible as an extras menu. It's already there, so why not repurpose it? It could use more illustrations though and provide access to the game's soundtrack. Harmful Park is a good game despite a few lapses. It pops out enough that it's distinct when next to games of its kind. As I said earlier, the game is good for casual shmup players like myself. I'd even bet this can serve as a good entry to the genre. It's accessible enough that players can enjoy the game, but challenging enough to remind you it's a shmup. Should you buy this game? Oh shit, you're serious. No, I'd advise against that. This game is infamous for being one of the rarest and most expensive titles on the PS1. Prices range from $700 to over $1,000. It's not worth it. The only other legal option is to buy the game from PSN, but you need a Japanese account. So if you really want to try this game, I'd suggest that instead. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey guys, I'm sorry if the video took so long. I was trying my best to write a good script and I hope this works out. Please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for future uploads. I have a Twitter at KenAthomos if you want further updates or if you want to hear me ramble. There's also a Ko-fi page if you want to further support the channel. Links are in the description. Take care!